XHGC Canal 5, al servicio de la comunidad.
Pedimos ayuda para localizar a Víctor Gama Tavera, de 20 años de edad. Se ignora su paradero desde el 28 de mayo del año 2000. Esteban Mendoza Juárez, de 24 años, se ignora su paradero desde el 29 de abril. Va en compañía del menor Víctor Daniel Mendoza Rodríguez.
Mexico has always been a place of mysticism, even before bearing that name. From the ages where the Mayans, and later on the Aztecs, ruled this part of the continent, who associated all sorts of fantastic traits to nature and to the creatures and characters in their mythologies. Going through the stories from colonial times of the New Spain, deeply influenced by the Old World, and in the 2 centuries since it became an independent nation, the people who call these lands home have kept a profound interest in the strange and unknown. And in modern times, the use of television, radio, and the internet has assisted the burgeoning of myths, both old and new, under the idiom of the urban legend. Today, I want to share with you a few of the more interesting tales that Mexico has to offer. The Iron Woman. This legend, with the Spanish name of La Planchada, refers to a woman by the name of Eulalia, who worked as a nurse in the San Pablo Hospital in early 20th century, now called Juarez Hospital in Mexico City. Her nickname is due to the description given by patients who claim to be visited by a beautiful and kind nurse, donning a pristine, ironed white uniform of old features. A nurse who attended to their needs and cared for them, who they cite as the reason for their recovery from their ailments, but who can never be identified by other hospital staff. According to the story, Eulalia was a woman thoroughly dedicated to the task of caring for the ill in the San Pablo Hospital, the place where she would meet a young physician by the name of Joaquin, with whom she fell in love. It is said that after some time together, Joaquin proposed to marry Eulalia, but the joy she felt was soon shattered when she learned that he had abandoned the hospital to pursue marriage with another woman. The news had been devastating for Eulalia, who fell into a deep depression, during which she began neglecting the well-being of her patients and of herself, leaving them unattended when they needed her help, and deteriorating her own health, eventually becoming a patient herself and dying in the same hospital where she used to work. The guilt and regret from all the people who died under her watch would have caused the nurse to remain in this world, now dedicating eternity to care for the patients of the Juarez Hospital during the night, fulfilling her duties even beyond death. Nahuales. The name comes from the word Nahuali, meaning hidden or disguise, in the dialect Nahuatl, the language of the Aztecs, and it refers to witches and shamans with the ability to transform into animals, belonging to Mesoamerican mythology with striking similarities to the myth of the skinwalker from the Navajo tribe in the north. Nahuales were sometimes associated with nocturnal rituals where witches would chant invocations around bonfires before covering their bodies with ashes and the pelts of animals they desired to transform into. In other versions, shamans would use meditation to project their soul and will upon wild animals, allowing them to possess them and control their actions, while maintaining their physical bodies in the safeties of their homes and temples, granting them the extraordinary abilities of beasts, the hearing of bats, the sight of the eagles, the smell of the wolves, and the strength of the jaguars. And in a different version of the myth, it is said that Nahuales are people born with the capacity for transmutation, altering their bodies, be it by their own accord or unwillingly during involuntary periods, who were considered a threat by the inhabitants of pre-colonial Mexico, being one of the reasons why people preferred to stay at their homes during the night. With such ancient roots for this legend, it is no surprise that there continue to be sightings and reports of Nahuales in modern times, of creatures with odd features and strange behaviors, suspected of bearing the mind and will of men, the work of occultists who through some way or another managed to keep alive the knowledge for such feats. Aside from those common forms of the myth, there's also depictions of them as creatures belonging to the spiritual realm, who accompany and guide people during their lives, and once they are over, allow them to make the journey into the other side. Ghosts in the subway. The Mexico City subway is one of the largest underground railway systems in the world, with 226 kilometers of tracks in its network, 12 lines, 195 stations, and 384 trains, with the capacity to transport 837 million passengers in 2021. Having such high numbers, it is to be expected to learn about the multitude of reports about strange noises, shadows, and peculiar lights that many people claim to have sighted in the vast tunnels of the capital's mass transport system. Having operated for 53 years since its opening in 1969, it was only inevitable for untold numbers of passengers to have perished in the platforms and stations of the subway, be it for natural causes, disease, accident, or worse, by their own will. And there is people who believe the souls of the deceased have permeated that place of steel and concrete. Some of its stories relate to the workers of the original project when the subway was built, under the rumors that it was a common occurrence for the construction crews and engineers to go missing when others weren't looking, or relating to the screams that some staff members claimed to have heard in the dark tunnels after service hours. Other stories tell of specific entities, like the smiling woman who manifests in line 1 of the subway very late at night, when the train cars are almost completely empty. A woman dressed in dirty rags and with tangled hair that stares at people for long periods, bearing a grotesque and sickly smile that sparks panic and fear in those who find her, making them flee from the cars at the first available stop. As it is to be expected, There's also stories of phantom children in the stations of the subway, with passengers claiming to have come across a small girl at the terminal of the 8th line, wearing a long dress, as it is often very late in the day when the place is nearly empty. The girl would ask help from strangers to tie her shoes, but when crouching down to do so, people would find she had no feet, understandably, retreating at haste from the location. Even missing an encounter or sighting with strange things, the Mexico City subway is a dismal and unsettling place under the absence of the crowds that transit every day, both for practical reasons, like from the concern of someone returning home very late at night, and out of superstition, suspecting and dreading its hallways and staircases, wondering how much one could learn if walls could talk.
Mira, güey, supuestamente las pinches cámaras tienen un identificador de caras, güey. Hay una escalera y le aparece un cuadrito verde. ¿Saben por qué, güey?
¿Dónde?
Aquí. Voy en radio. Mira, ¿ya viste?
Sí, es cierto. Ahora toma foto. ¿No debe de aparecer una acá? ¿O cómo?
¿Ya viste? ¿Sí viste o no? Mira, ya me muevo.
¿Quién tiene el radio?
Estás ahí arriba. Mira, ¿ya ves cómo lo vuelve a aparecer ahí?
Sí. Toma foto.
¡Ah, su!
The Corpse Bride. This legend, with the Spanish name of La Pascualita, tells of a mannequin which is the central figure at the wedding store La Popular in the state of Chihuahua, being part of its displays since the year 1930. Originally called La Chonita, it attained its current nickname because of its resemblance to the then shop owner, Mrs. Pascuala Esparza de Paris, who supposedly ordered the mannequin from a designer in France. Its most striking feature is the incredible detail and realistic design of the mannequin, having wrinkles and folds in its hands, as well as creases in its fingertips, resembling fingerprints, as well as a beautifully sculpted face with eyes that simulate life, according to visitors, and that follow them as they go about the shop. So strange is this mannequin that it soon sparked the rumor that it was actually a corpse. According to the story, the shop owner's very daughter, a young lady, smart, beautiful, and kind-hearted, who tragically died on her wedding day after being stung by a scorpion. Mrs. Esparza would have been unable to stand her grief, thus asking for her daughter to be embalmed, in order to accompany her at the wedding shop, with the same appearance she had in what should have been the happiest day in her life. Pascuala Esparza passed away in 1967, but the mannequin bearing her name has remained in the store to this very day, even through several owners, becoming one of the most well-known tourist attractions in the state of Chihuahua. Missing people from Channel 5. Since the year 1986, Channel 5, belonging to the company Televisa, produced informative segments used to request help to locate missing people, during which an announcer would read the details of each person mentioned therein, going over their full name, last known location, and date when they went missing, along with a photograph to help identify them. The first handful of these segments were straightforward with the seriousness that such a subject warranted, but completely normal, all things considered. It was from 2001 onwards that these would change into a format that would burn itself into the collective memory of an entire generation. A dark blue background accompanied by analog static, and the loud, intrusive voice of the announcer going over the details of each missing person. It was a sudden and unexpected change in the content of the screen, especially for any child who happened to be watching at the time, holding an upsetting, dreadful atmosphere that caused great distress and anguish, even without context or understanding of their purpose, or perhaps because of said ignorance. Channel 5 almost universally had kids programming during most of the day, and these segments could appear at any moment during commercial breaks, with little way of avoiding such startling, unexpected sight, and with the only recourse of turning away from the screen or trying to change the channel, though often they became strangely hypnotic, making it difficult to avert my gaze until they were over. I know, because I was a small child back then. Within them, the most prominent character that has stood out over the years is a woman by the name of Selene Delgado Lopez, whose image has become associated with all sorts of rumors, going from the claim that she never went missing, that she wasn't a real person, that her face and image were the creation of an artificial intelligence, or that she had multiple appearances in these missing people segments, some of those in color, and depicting her as attending some form of party or reunion. This last one in particular is something that I personally remember seeing when I first delved into the subject about a decade ago, but I was unable to find any leads about it in today's investigation. Of all these variants, most likely none of them are true, with only our wild imagination and interest leaning us towards whatever version seems the most interesting, something that to me is a way of enduring the harsh reality that these segments were about, for even as adults, they remain deeply unsettling, because they didn't talk about mystery and mysticism, or about anything paranormal, but of the terrible circumstance that is losing a loved one in such a manner, knowing that the family members of these people never achieved answers or closure, or any form of solace or alleviation to their grief, who never even had the chance to grant a burial for a brother, a daughter, or a father. A reminder to us all that reality is more terrifying than any fiction. I hope you've enjoyed the video. This is my first free-form project, but I intend to continue working on audiobooks as well. If you're not familiar with that part of my work, you can find them on my channel or on the end cards of this video. Projects like this take a great deal of time and effort. I would appreciate it if you could share it with someone. Disseminating my work helps me immensely.